Hello and welcome to another episode of Dogman Sasquatch Oklahoma Encounters. I'll be your host tonight, Lance Hightower, and I'm co-hosted with my brother Lane, who's here tonight. How are you doing?
Just fine.
Good, good. Well, I'm excited to bring another episode here. We have a very interesting story, encounter tonight, and of some brothers. And so we're going to go ahead and introduce our guest. He wishes not to give his name, so out of respect and courtesy here, we're going to abide by his wishes. So we're going to call him Bob tonight, and his brother. So, Bob, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, well, thank you so much, first of all, for calling in. We really appreciate that. And we're going to start out here, Bob, just by telling us whatever you would like about yourself, and then if you would just kind of lead into what you experienced some time ago.
Okay. I would like to say thank you very much for allowing us to be on your show.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
And giving us the opportunity to put our stories out there. I'm an avid outdoors. I enjoy hunting and fishing and just camping and being outside. And probably, it was in 2000, I went deer hunting, and I was out deer hunting, and I shot a buck, first buck I've ever shot. And I was field dressing him, and I got a really creepy feeling over me. And I was looking around, and I didn't see anything at first. And then probably about 100 yards or so away from me, I saw it sitting in the grass. Well, I'm going to call it a mountain lion because I don't know what else to call it. And it was just sitting there looking at me, and I was looking at it, and it scared the crap out of me. I'm not going to lie, it did. But I didn't feel threatened because it was just sitting there looking at me. And anyway, I finished field dressing my deer, and I threw it up in the back of my truck. And as I was driving away, I saw the mountain lion kind of circle around where I'd been, and I think it was going towards the field dress guts. I don't know, because I didn't stick around to find out. And I drove on up the road a little ways, and I talked to the farmer that lives close by to where I was at, and he asked me how my hunt went. I said, well, it went pretty good. You know, it's back in my truck, and I said, yeah, that's a nice buck. He goes, did you see anything weird up there while you were hunting? I said, well, actually I did. I saw a cat, a big cat. And he goes, well, did you shoot it? I said, no, I didn't shoot it. And he said, well, you need to, next time you see something like that, you need to shoot it because those cats are killing my cows. And I said, really? He said, yes. And he informed me that he talked to the game warden, and apparently the state had let loose these cats to try to cut down on the deer population, but instead of going after the deer, they're going after cattle. And then later on, down the road, I'm going to say probably 2012, me and a friend of mine, we were down by the river because it was an extremely hot day. It was probably around 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon, extremely hot day, and it's very shady, and we like to bird watch. So we were down by the river trying to bird watch, and when we got to this particular place where we like to go, where usually the area is teeming with wildlife, we noticed that there's no sound whatsoever. There's no birds, no animals running around, nothing. It's just dead silent. And we were sitting in the car, just kind of chit-chatting away a little ways. And we noticed it was very faint at first, a very faint odor. And I can't say that it really was bad at first. It was just really unusual faint odor. And then probably a few minutes passed, and the odor got a little stronger, and a smell that? She said, yes. She goes, what is that? I said, I don't know. It smells like there's something dead around here. And we were kind of looking around. We didn't see anything. And then a few more minutes had passed, and the odor got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And as it got stronger, we both got, I don't know how to describe the feeling other than pure terrified feeling. Like we were being watched, and we were just in danger. And we were looking around, and we couldn't see anything anywhere. Didn't hear anything, but the smell just kept getting stronger and stronger. And the only way I can really describe the smell is a cross between maybe feces and something dead. It was just a horrible smell. I've never smelled anything before that, and nothing since. But we got this feeling that, you know, we were in danger, and we left. And it freaked us both out. And I went back a couple hours later because I was convinced that there was probably something dead, or there had to be something dead there. I was convinced of it. So I went back a couple hours later, the same spot we were at. The smell was gone. I looked all over the place. Got out of my car, looked all over in the woods and everything, and there was nothing. There was no dead carcass. There was nothing there. The animals were out playing again, and that was it. And I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if it was Bigfoot or not because I didn't actually see anything.
Well, what I think is interesting here, Bob, is that the first story, in my mind, correlates. I don't know, Lane, what you think too, but the first story correlates because when you were out field dressing that deer, you felt you were being watched, and you were. You were being watched
Yes.
by that cat, and so we both know, everybody's had that experience where you just can't explain it. It's just something in our nervous system that when something's not right, doesn't feel right, especially if you've never experienced something so overwhelming where you feel terrified. That's programmed there for us to back out slowly, get in the car, walk out, and leave that area. That's what that is. And so I really think the first story highly correlates to what you experienced, you and your friend. Now, did she or he, whoever was with you, experience that same feeling you said?
Yeah, she was. She was really freaked out. She was scared to death. And like I said, we were looking around, and well, where we were at, it's very shaded, very wooded area, and we were sitting in the car. We didn't get out, but we were looking around. We couldn't see anything anywhere, nothing, and there was no sound at all.
And you said there was no sound for about 15 or 20 minutes when I previously spoke to you, right?
Right, yeah. As soon as we got there, usually when we go to this particular spot, there's always animals running around. There's animals playing. You know, it's down by the river, so there's all kinds of wildlife down there. And we were there to do the bird watching, and we didn't see any birds. There was no squirrels. There was no activity at all. It was just dead silence.
Now, without giving away the specific location here, Bob, can you just kind of describe the area to us about what the foliage, the terrain, what it was like where you guys were parked?
Yeah, it's a road that runs parallel to the river, and it's a dead end. And back years ago, it was a party spot. It's not anymore, but it was then. And off to the left of the road is a walking trail that goes probably about a mile up, and it starts at a golf course and goes down to the river. And then off to the right is the river, probably, I want to say probably at 400 or 500 yards is the river, and in between is just a lot of trees and foliage and brush and stuff. But directly behind where we were parked, at the time when we were there, it was blocked off by cement pillars. But now there's a gate there, but I've hiked that area before, and directly behind us where we were at, there are farmer fields, there's fields, and there's a lot of wooded areas back there too.
So could you say, is this relatively close to a township then, or is this out in the middle of the countryside, or?
No, it's actually really close to town. It's
Interesting.
just barely outside of town.
But the water source is relatively close by.
Yes, very close.
And like you said, you had been at this spot, sounds like, a few times and never experienced this smell or that overwhelming, terrifying feeling before.
Never. No, I've been there several times before and several times after, and I was even there the other day, and I've never felt that ever anywhere.
And there was, I believe you said as well, there was some real thick, dense foliage near the car that you were in. Is that?
Yes.
That you really couldn't see through because the time of the year, it was during the summertime, and you said that day was really, really hot.
Yeah, it was extremely hot. It was probably 105, where we're in Kansas. We have a lot of humidity, so it felt even hotter.
Mm-hmm. I imagine so, especially near water sources on a hot day. So since then, have you or your friend talked about that time, and if so, what did they think about the experience that they had?
Yeah, I've talked to her a few times about it, and she doesn't know what to think about it. She really doesn't. She doesn't really like to talk about it. I know that it really freaked her out. I mean, she doesn't want to talk about it, but she doesn't really know what it was, and she's kind of the type of person, she doesn't really want to know what it was.
Well, it is very, very interesting because it's one thing to smell something horrible that you've never even smelled to the point where it almost sickens you, but it's another thing, I think, in smelling something and then you get this overwhelming feeling that you shouldn't be there or you need to get out.
We definitely felt like we were in danger, and we couldn't explain it. That was the crazy part about it, is that we didn't see anything, we didn't hear anything. We just felt like we needed to get out of there now.
Bob, this is Lane. How you doing, sir, this evening?
Hi, I'm good.
My question is obviously with my own experiences regarding the cryptid side of life, if you want to call it that. I too, myself, have had the experience as far as smelling the unpleasant aroma, if you want to call it that, of the indescribable type smell. It's just something that you really can't pinpoint, but I've also been in areas that I've come across that type of undescribable smell. A lot of people say between a wet dog or feces per se, or BO, however you want to call it. I've been in areas too where because I'm an avid outdoorsman as well, and I've been to the areas where I just cannot explain what it is, but again, you get a sense of unrest per se, that something is around you, and it doesn't make sense, so it's just time to back out. Was there any other, was there any localization at that time that you had this account happen to you?
No, we didn't hear anything at all. There was no sound whatsoever. That was really creepy. There wasn't any sound. We just felt and smelled. It's hard to describe exactly how we felt, or I felt, because, well, my friend, she was terrified too, but it seemed like, to me, as the smell got stronger, it seemed like the feeling of being watched also got stronger too. And it got really, really bad. And the time that it got so strong that we really couldn't stand it anymore, that's the time that we decided it was time to leave, because it felt like something was getting closer to us, but we couldn't see it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, I truly feel, in understanding a lot of healthcare, that our nervous system is designed to protect us, to survive. And I believe there is that sixth sense, if you will, that even though we may not understand it, we've all had moments. I know personally we have. I know Lane has, and even my brother Bill. When we're out, we've learned to just listen to it. Even if we don't visualize it, there's something that's watching us. We're being watched, and we can either stop in our tracks and try to seek movement if there's anywhere we're being watched, or we just back out slowly. And it's kind of hard to describe, but we totally understand that feeling. Now, have you been back to this area any number of times, Bob, or anything, or is this?
Yes, I have. I have. I've been there several times, and I haven't seen, but I've looked around just to see if I could find any evidence of anything out there, and I haven't found anything.
Interesting. Well, that's quite a olfactory kind of encounter, if you will, and that we've learned, like I said, just to listen, if you will, and mind that feeling, especially when it's a feeling you've never had, that terrifying feeling. It's indescribable. You can't really put into words how you felt at that moment, and especially when your person there, your buddy, is feeling the same thing, and to the point where you guys had to just pull out. Now, if I understand that your brother is also there, and that he would like to share a story with us as well. Is he there?
Yes, he is. I'll put him on.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Bob.
Hey.
Hey, brother. Hey,
Hi.
I understand that in talking to your brother there, that you had an experience some years ago, and could you go into that a little bit? And if you want, you're welcome to give any brief bio of yourself or not. It's up to you, and you don't have to give specific locations. So just anytime, just tell us the details of what you experienced some years ago.
Okay. I'm a employee of a manufacturer here in the Kansas area, southeast Kansas. I'm an inspector, and I've got a lot of quality control and customer service experience behind me. And this encounter happened in 1980. I believe it was September or October. It was still hot out. It was still green. Lots of vegetation. And this happened on private property that my family still owns. And what happened, I guess, is my dad and I went out there on a Friday evening, and we have a pond on a different part of the land, and that was kind of like our little base camp. And we made a little campfire, and we sat out there and did a little fishing, and then the next morning was Saturday. We got up and began pulling out posts from a fence line on the west side of the property. And it was just a day of labor, no fun or anything. It was really just a lot of work. And at the end of the day, we went back Saturday night to our little camp, and we hung out there and fished a little, had some hot dogs, and then Sunday morning we got up and kind of rinsed and repeat. We did the same thing, started finishing up this fence, pulling these posts out, and when we were done, we finished probably about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and my dad had oil batteries, oil tanks out there, and he decided that he wanted to check the level in the tank. So we kind of backtracked and went back we got to about the halfway part of the property, and my dad stopped to relieve himself, and I got out of the truck, and I don't know what it is that made me look, but I looked off to the east, and I saw something that appeared to be playing peekaboo with me. I saw something you could imagine, maybe a tree trunk, maybe about 1 or 2 feet in diameter, and a person hiding behind it, moving to the left and moving to the right. Almost like a kid playing peekaboo or something like that. And that's what got my attention. If we hadn't stopped, I'd never even seen this. But whatever this was, it got my attention. And I had always felt a sense of protectiveness over the land. And so I think I had more of a confrontational spirit. I think I said something about, Dad, I think I see somebody back there. And I started walking in a few feet. And I didn't see anything. And I thought, I know I saw something. And so I walked in a little bit more, and I could have swore that there was another person back there. And I said, Dad, there's somebody back here. And I was looking back and forth with my dad and whatever was out there. And I looked again, and I didn't see anything. And at that point, I raised my voice and I said, if somebody's back there, you better come out. We got guns. I said, you're trespassing. You need to tell us who you are and why you're out here. And I didn't see or hear anything. And I told my dad, Dad, I think there's somebody back here. And so I walked in again, and now, by this point, I'm probably 10 or 15 yards away from my truck, and we're still in kind of a grassy area, but I'm looking into what is pretty heavy forest. And I looked again, and in the thickest part, the thickest, gnarliest bunch of weeds and grass and this tree shrub stuff that grows out there, there was a man-like shape that was at least 6, 7, maybe 8 feet tall, and probably 2 or 3 times the size of my dad in size and weight. And my dad was 200 pounds and 6 feet tall. And I was kind of freaked out. I didn't see a face or hands or anything, but I could see something there. And I turned to tell my dad, there's somebody back there, there's something back here. And I looked again, and it was gone. And at that point, it was just like somebody turned on a light switch. I got the fear of God over me. My hair stood up, and I got the fight or flight instinct, and I was just really panicking. My heart started racing. And by this point, my dad's like, oh, come on, boy, we got to get out of here. I want to go home, and I'm tired. We can't be playing around. And so I walked back to the truck with my dad, and I said, did you see that? Did you see it? And he said, I didn't see anything. I don't know what the hell you're looking at. And so we got in the truck, and we drove off, and that was my encounter. The whole thing from start to finish was probably about 2 minutes long.
Now, you said that this was what time of the day?
This would have been between probably 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. It wasn't close to dark, and there weren't a lot of long shadows yet. It was still early mid-afternoon. Now, how far was it when you first visualized that this peekaboo was going on, or that you noticed something playing peekaboo with you? I was a kid, I was 13, so, a lot's happened since then, but I'm going to guesstimate you probably no less than 100 feet, no more than 200 feet.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't a big distance, but it was real thick, heavy brush.
Have you ever on this property, now this was your property, your family's property, correct?
Yeah, it still is, yep.
Had you noticed anything, say, prior to that maybe your family has noticed, your dad, anyone that they couldn't explain it, but they just passed it off? Anything like that before or since what you visualized?
At that point, no. And just for the record, at that point, now in the area of Kansas that we live in, it's a small rural area, and when you hear stories about Bigfoot, and particularly back then, about all anything anybody knew about Bigfoot was whatever was in the National Enquirer, and it was always a California giant in the mountains, and pictures of the Quinlan Patterson film. So, Bigfoot wasn't even on my mind at the time. And it wasn't, you didn't really talk to anybody in this area that ever talked about Bigfoot.
Right.
So, now since that time, I have frequently gone out there, and I've never seen anything. I haven't seen any tree breaks. I haven't seen footprint. I haven't smelled anything. I've kind of got that sense of being watched, but it hasn't been anything that felt threatening. But I've heard, I don't know how else to describe it, something like whispers, but nothing that you could make out, not like you could make out a voice or anything. But that's it. I haven't seen anything since that time.
Interesting. Out of curiosity, is there any water sources on your property that was close by from where you visualized this creature?
There are ponds all around that area. We have one pond on our 80 acres, but there's a dozen more ponds easily within walking distance of there.
Interesting.
And there's a ravine. It's a spillway, part of an old, it's a natural formation, but it's been modified as part of a spillway for one of the lakes to the northeast of our property. It's about 5 to 10 miles up the road, but this ravine thing goes the whole distance, and there's significant elevation changes throughout that area, and ample brush coverage, and like I said, there's ponds all over out there.
What type of crops per se around in that area as available food source? Milo, wheat, anything of that type of activity out there?
I don't know if Milo's still in the area, but they've had corn and wheat, and other smaller crops. There's a lot of deer, a lot of turkey. I'm not a farmer, so I don't know a lot about the crops, but there's not too many fruit trees or anything like that out there. I know that. There are a lot of blackberries that go wild.
Well, obviously, the available food sources are there for these type of creatures. It's also interesting to the fact that when you had your encounter and this peekaboo process per se was happening with you at that age back then in the 80s. What's interesting is that these creatures are well known to observe people from a distance or from afar per se. They're mostly interested in us. I don't believe that these creatures are here to harm us or hurt us. However, there's been accounts that's been a little bit more aggressive than others from other people's eyewitness accounts. But my encounter that I had, it was more of an observation that this creature was watching me. And actually, when I saw this, my creature, or the creature that I did see per se, come across the field, and by the time it actually come up behind the pickup, it was just observing a friend and myself at the time. And
wow.
and there was and obviously there was no vocalization at all. We were just having a stare down or a staring contest. But yes, these things are well known to be in very thick areas, such as the terrain that that you go on and have been in the past. And the available food sources for these creatures have been documented for, such as game, especially white-tailed deer. And those type of food sources.
Yeah. I do know that in the 1980s, in the early 1980s, there were a couple of reports people that called the sheriff's department about Bigfoot sightings in this county. And I also know that as recently as last year, on my property, there's a hunter that is actually a decent hunter, and he shot a deer, and he couldn't find it. He found the blood pool, and he followed the trail and all that, and the blood trail, and he found the blood pool, but no deer. And I've got absolutely no doubt that I didn't see Bigfoot. I'm sure that's what it was. There wasn't anything else that it could have been. There wasn't anybody around that would have been hoaxing us or playing with us or anything. There was nobody around at the time that was really interested in Bigfoot that I know of, and I just have never had anybody give me a rational explanation of what I could have seen. And like I said, the thing was double the size of my dad. So I don't know too many people that could, mimic a human being like that.
Right.
Absolutely. And we know you saw what you saw, and even at that age, the human mind, the brain is processing what you associate with what you know in the world versus instantly, in fractions of a second, what I don't know. And when that occurs, and in the environment you're in where no one should be, and you're seeing something that's in this man-like form, it's exactly what you said. That adrenaline starts kicking in, like this is not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Well, what really kind of has got me perplexed over all the years is just how fast that it was there and gone, 2 or 3 times. And I never heard a sound. I couldn't hear anything moving or breathing. I couldn't smell anything, but there was definitely something there. And I've seen enough deer, I've seen other wild animals out there that, there's just only so many explanations of what it could be. So.
Now, your brother said something that was interesting, so please correct me. He said that this encounter, this eyewitness encounter you saw, would it happen to be near a power line cutout?
There are power lines in that vicinity, and that road that we call this oil road, it had been recently, I don't want to say excavated, it had been cleared of a little bit of brush and trees by the oil companies to get tools and equipment in there.
The only reason why I asked is that, most animals traveling, if given the opportunity or the choice, will travel the path of least resistance, especially when there's thick brush, unless they don't want to be seen. But we've heard many account on other shows where people have called in and they've seen quite a few number of these bipedal creatures traveling near the edge of the woods or thickets right on a power line cutout. So I thought that was interesting if that was the case. I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah. It's not the power lines that he's referring to that were out there at that time. They were a little bit further north. I'd say maybe 5 or 10 acres further north. But this oil road runs north and south through kind of the middle of the property, and they do intersect the power lines, and where the road crossed, and that was where they had the active oil well at the time. And that oil road, there was probably 50 feet on each side of it that was clear, that was just all grass. And after that grass, then it was this woods, and some of it's real thin, some of it's real heavy, and it's the type of environment that even experienced people, experienced woodsmen kind of lose their orientation out there. It's not like the Twilight Zone thing, it's just kind of how that land is out there. You walk a few feet and you think, well, I'm going north, and actually you're really not going north, you're going northwest. That effect.
That's what I was going to ask, is how the terrain is out there. So it sounds like there's a lot of thickets, an occasional open area, lots of ponds, as you said, lots of probably blackjack and cedar and rolling sand hills.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he starts it well, yeah.
So again, you said no. Go ahead.
Our land has got it elevates up about 40 or 50 feet. The county said it was about 4 or 5 stories in elevation, and it slopes back down another 2 or 3 stories over this whole 80 acres that we have. So it's kind of, it plateaus on the southeast part of the land, and it, as you go north, it actually goes a little bit lower, and then towards the north property line at the end of the 80 acres, it raises back up a little bit. So it's not a bowl, but it's not flat either.
Kind of like a saddle.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Interesting.
You know what's interesting, and I'll go back to this. If you can go back and elaborate just a little bit more, you shared with us a story that a gentleman had harvested a deer during deer season, and the deer come up missing.
Yeah. Yeah, he was in a deer stand, and he was in the general vicinity of my site, but he didn't know that, and he's not a believer. He doesn't believe in Bigfoot, but he shot a deer with a crossbow, or a bow, a regular bow, but he's an experienced hunter, and he knows he got a good shot in, and I think he said he got a doe, and it was towards the end of the day, and he was, wanting to get something to get out of there so he could tag out, and he shot this deer, and he saw the vicinity that it ran in, and he found a blood trail, and I'm not sure how far he followed it, but I do know that he went probably about 20, 30 acres, something like that, the way he was describing it. It ran quite a distance, is what he said, and he found a pool of blood where he thought it had laid down, and there was just nothing else there. There was no deer, there was nothing. He's certain that had to have been his deer. But I'd have to have him tell you the rest of that story, but he didn't report anything out of the ordinary to me. He just said, I couldn't find my deer.
And it just goes right back to the peekaboo around the tree and observation. It's been documented and well noted that the observation process goes on all the time, meaning that when we're out there enjoying, whether we're hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, whatever the case may be, that these creatures are around all the time. And a lot of people don't know, obviously, and of course a lot of people don't believe in it, and that's fine too, until they have their own encounter, whether it's a vocalization or an eyewitness encounter. However, it just leads credibility that, when we have these encounters, especially a hunter per se, harvests by a white-tailed deer with a bow, an arrow, and then next thing you know, the deer comes up missing. My question is when most people, what the deer just pick itself up and take off, or if it was actually expired, what could have picked it up, especially dead weight, such as a white-tailed deer, and walk off with it?
Sure, exactly.
Most people want to think, as hunters, we go out there and we try to be vigilant and being good observers of nature and wildlife. But the fact of the matter is, we're not all the time. Whereas these creatures are observers 24/7. That's why they're very, very elusive, very hard to capture any footage of them. They know you're in the woods before you even get there. They're very keen on smell, sight, hearing, everything that we have, but amplified times 10. That's their environment. Really, it's not our environment. So that's why when people say, well, I've never seen anything and I've hunted in the woods for 40 years. Well, to your visual knowledge, you've never seen anything. But who knows how many times you were out on your property, you and your dad, your brother, and they were feet away. You would never know. They're masters of camouflage. They use the surrounding to their advantage. And so, who knows?
Yeah. I don't believe that I've heard people talk about, well, stealth. They can turn stealth mode on and off and stuff like that. I don't believe that stuff, but I do believe everything you just said is right. I believe that they're very cunning and very creative in their ability to hide in the environment around them. I absolutely do believe that, because this thing, it was just a matter of turning my head to the left and back to the right just within a couple of seconds, and the thing was completely gone. And I've talked to other landowners in the vicinity, and we've known each other just hi, how you doing type of social contact. And the last couple of years I've asked people, have you ever had any funny encounters out here? And besides for mountain lion reports, no one's ever said anything. And I really believe in my heart that most of the people out there are afraid of researchers coming out, or afraid of strangers coming out there and violating their personal space, so they're probably not going to tell you if they see one anyway.
Well, that's what we're encountering as well. It's just that either, and there's a couple different reasons or emotions why you hit on a couple right there, and I don't blame the landowners. We don't. That's why we try not to give specifics, is because we really want to honor people's property, their valuables, and not have people just going out there willy-nilly. And the other thing is, honestly, is that it doesn't correlate or associate to anything that they understand. And most people in general fear what they don't understand or can't process of what they've seen before. So in between that emotion and not having their property disturbed and have a bunch of people on there that shouldn't be there, they just rather just keep it quiet and don't even tell the people that they've known for years.
Yeah,
that's
I agree.
And we totally respect that and understand that. And what we wanted to do with this show is just provide a platform for people in Oklahoma and the surrounding states. Not that we can solve anything, but just kind of educate those people that do go out into the woods. You may not be alone, and that just to be alert and aware of your surroundings, and that don't go out there intentionally hunting for these things, because you might just find something that you don't want.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And just use that spidey sense that your brother was talking about, and if you get feeling where you shouldn't be there, even if it's on your property, stop and start backing out slowly and just use your wits. So, Lane, do you have any other questions here or comments, Lane?
Oh, yeah. One more question.
Okay.
As you were talking about, the locals around in the area where the encounter had taken place for you, and I do understand and I do respect that as well. I know that my question is that I wonder I wonder how many other people have had eyewitness encounters that obviously are not going to come forward, and I wonder if the people around in that area have had obviously multiple encounters with types of cryptid creatures, whether it's a Bigfoot or even a dogman. I know a lot of people don't understand the dogman type cryptid side, but there are these creatures that are an apex type creature as well, that are 7 to 8 foot tall, excess of 300 to 400 pounds, and a lot of these people have even seen these creatures walk out there as well. I would just, even for myself, the question was raised with even me. I know for a fact with what I have seen years ago, back in the 90s, that I was speaking to my brother and saying, hey, I wonder how many people out there have actually had eyewitness accounts that they'll never come forward because of either A, ridicule, or B, they just obviously don't want people out there on their property. And that's just, which we understand. And we respect that.
Well, I would believe...
Yeah, please, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I apologize. I would believe that your answers on that A and B, ridicule and privacy. I can't speak for people seeing these things, but I can guarantee you that a lot of the landowners around my area, they've been out there 40 plus years, and I'm sure that something has happened that was out of the ordinary, but they're just not going to tell you. husband and wife might talk about it at the coffee table in the morning, but that's probably as far as it's going to go unless something bad happens.
Exactly. And that gets to, there's no way you can estimate or guesstimate, even you can, how many people really have had encounters. For every report that comes forward, such as you guys, there is 8 or 10 in the area that'll never say anything.
Yeah.
And so
I agree.
that's kind of what our purpose is to kind of hit the rural communities that's not on these flashy national shows on television now, and really get people to tell their story because they feel a little bit better realizing that, I'm not completely out of my mind. I have all the faculties about myself. I'm an educated person. I know the woods. I know what things look like, smell like, and sound like, and this was nothing ever that I've ever experienced.
That sums it up for me. I like I said, I was a little boy, and all I knew about Bigfoot at that point in my life was the famous still picture of the one they call Patty from the Patterson Glenlund film, and then pictures in the National Enquirer, blurry blobs, people seeing Bigfoot up in the California mountains. Never heard about this in Kansas. And as time went on and I started to hear more stories, I started thinking, I actually think that was a Bigfoot. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I knew it wasn't human. I knew it wasn't an animal like a deer or anything else, and there's not been any bear encounters in Kansas that I'm aware of, but the behavior, the fact that it looked more like a human than anything else, that just stuck in my mind all my life.
Well, most people, if they say it was a bear's behavior is quite different. They don't play peekaboo behind. They can stand up, they can be bipedal for a moment, but to my knowledge, most bears will not continually walk upright. And most of the time when they're walking upright, your black bears, your brown bears, your grizzlies, it's a curiosity. They don't attack in a standing position. It's a curiosity, or they're trying to gain smell. They don't play peekaboo behind a tree.
Yeah, and this thing did. Yeah, that's what got my attention to start with. I thought, who is that? What's that? Something looked behind the tree at me. And
well, obviously, it takes some great intelligence to obscure themselves. Number one, it's obscuring itself away from you, meaning hiding behind a tree. It takes a level of intelligence to even do that, and especially when something is going back and forth, instead of presenting its entire body in front of you, it's hiding at the same time but peeking around a tree. So obviously it takes a level of intelligence even to do that. Yeah,
and like I said, we would have driven another 50 feet south, or not even stopped there. We wouldn't be talking about it now. I'd never seen it. It just was. We just happened to stop there at this particular time, and it happened to be there. And from start to finish, probably no more than 2 minutes.
Do you think, in a strange way, you were meant to see it? I know that sounds strange.
I don't know. I kind of wonder about that. I don't know.
My brother and I have discussed this with his encounter. Why me? Why now? Why at this point? And I know that sounds kind of like a rhetorical question, but it's one that when you ask this to some people, they said, yes, I feel like this was a gift. Some people look at it as a gift, even though it was a terrifying moment. Some people said, I may never see another one again, but I saw something that no one has ever seen before. I mean, would you agree, Lane? I mean, that's kind of how when you were discussing.
Oh, absolutely. I often wondered back in '95, when I had my eyewitness encounter, I was on the same mindset of, I had read some Bigfoot literature at that point in time in my life. I really didn't. I was kind of apprehensive. Well, does this exist? Does it exist? I don't know. I wasn't expecting anything of the kind until I saw, when I had my encounter and I saw this creature come up across a wheat field. And at that time when I locked on it, I still didn't understand what I was looking at until the time it appeared behind the pickup that I was sitting in. And then I could obviously see from head to toe that this creature was covered in hair entirely, and the height, estimated height at that time, had to be 7 to 8 foot tall. I mean, obviously, there was nothing around in the area that I could associate that with, because again, it rolls back to the idea that your mind's working at warp speed, going through electronic files per se in your mind to trying to identify what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost out of time here. I can't thank you enough on behalf of the brothers here. And in closing up here, between you and your brother, do you guys have any final comments you would like to add to what your brother smelled or what you visualized or anything like that?
I've been out to the area that he's described to you, and I agree that something easily could have the freedom of movement out there and never be seen by a human being. And the same thing with the property that we own. And I've lived in the city for a while, and I moved back down here. Now that I'm back down here and all, I'm more interested in it than ever, and I would like to go out exploring, but I don't want to go out and hunt it. You know, I don't think that shooting one for sport or for proof would be the right thing to do. I think that just natural observation and trying to get a picture of something would be kind of a cool experience, but I think that you guys are wise in warning people that this is a potentially dangerous being.
Absolutely, and that's kind of what we tell people. It's just not a matter when we go. We're fully aware of our surroundings. If we go into an area we're not familiar with, we don't pretend to know. We try to investigate the terrain, the topo map, everything. We try to be very detailed. We don't hunt these things. We are strictly in a document investigative operation, because, as I said before, if someone tries to go out and hunt, you may be going to experience something that you wish you hadn't.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
You never really want to go by yourself. We emphasize for people, even when you're out hunting and enjoying the outdoors of Oklahoma and some of the surrounding states, we have beautiful terrain, is that always try to take a partner or be in a group or let someone know where you're going. Be safe about it. Know your firearm really well when you're deer hunting. Be safe about everything, and just be prepared for the unexpected. So those are good words of wisdom there from you and your brother, and we can't thank you enough for sharing your experiences and what you saw. Again, this gives people some credibility, or it should. We have very intelligent people such as you and your brother that saw something that just didn't fit into what you knew, and that it is out there, but don't go hunting for it. Just use those senses that God gave us, and just back yourself out of the situation very safely. So thank you again on behalf of the brothers and myself, and if you ever experience anything in the future, please give us a call. Your brother's got my number, and we'd love to have you on the show again.
Cool. Sounds like a good experience, and I wish you guys the best of luck, too. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for yours. And Lane, would you like to say anything? Or?
Oh, yeah. It's just been it's been my pleasure to listen to this story. It's just outstanding. I just want to tell you guys just to be careful, again, and enjoyed the story tonight.
All right.
All right. Take care, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye-bye.